Let's talk about saving for retirement. Bosco Gicheo is the Senior Supervision Officer at the Retirement Benefits Authority. Bosco, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you.
The hot seat of the Situation Room. That proverb, does it make sense to you?
A lot of sense.
Okay.
A lot of sense.
What's your interpretation of it?
Actually, because you see, they say the road to the inner is through the eyes. Mm-hmm. So I think you're very right. That there were hangers who started to do that, say the truth. Because even right now, if I want to know how you were, even in terms of savings, I just need to look at your face.
You can tell.
You can tell.
Huyo mtu ana kakitu.
Yes. Amana kakitu.
Mtu amejihami.
Yeah.
Okay. Saving for retirement. We started by looking at, it's just 51 days into President William Ruto's administration. He's been talking almost every day. Almost speaking himself hoarse on the issue of retirement and saving for retirement, saying, look, let's increase our culture for savings. He is looking at NSSF as one way. We'll talk about NSSF later, but also about saving. As the Retirement Benefits Authority, you're established by law to regulate retirement benefit schemes and funds and whatever else they are. Tell us about the work that you do.
Our main work, basically, is to supervise or regulate the what can I call it? You can say the establishment and the administration of retirement benefit schemes, because these are actually the vehicles through which we save for that retirement. Our other key function now is to protect the interests of the members who are now saving into the schemes and the sponsor, who are majorly employers who start these schemes. Nowadays, we've even gone to an extent where we have individual saving vehicles, like individual pension plans. So we have those who set it up. So these interests have to be safeguarded. And how? Through us, and that is through the making of the necessary legislative apparatus. We advise the CS National Treasury on matters relating to pension. Yeah. And then we are also now the implementers, because the law is there, the regulations are there, so we do our best. We don't just do our best. I think it's on record that if there's one place where people are almost sure, I'll use the word almost because it's never absolute, is that your pension funds are always secure. Always secure.
According to the law, is saving for retirement mandatory, or is it something that
is it voluntary?
Volunteer to do?
It's two ways. For NSSF, because it's it's statutory, and in a way it is compulsory for all citizens. Particularly if you're employed, automatically you have to contribute to NSSF. Then the other side of it is voluntary in terms of setting it up. Employers voluntarily set up retirement benefits schemes, and we assist and guide them through this. Actually, part of our function also, key mandate, is to develop the industry by reaching out and trying to inculcate that, spreading that gospel of saving for retirement. Yes. So,
and one of the things about saving for retirement, just walk us through this. Money is deducted.
Yes.
The sum isn't a huge amount to jump up and down with. When that figure was set, how long ago was that figure set?
Which figure?
The statutory deductions
of NSSF.
NSSF, yes, because that's the one which has a large cross-cutting area of which.
The 200 shillings.
Precisely. That's why I said a paltry sum.
Yeah, just call it as it is. We say it's 200.
Right, 200
but of course, there's that debate of we should increase it, which we all agree. Yeah.
But when was it set? I'm going somewhere with my question, because at the time it was set, it must have served a purpose. It must have been seen to be relevant to the needs, isn't it?
Yes.
So when was it set?
I would not know the specific year, but it was way before even my time. I'm sure.
It was around let's call it
the
independence.
Okay.
Okay, because it existed during colonial time.
At the birth of Kenya.
At the birth of let's call it that. Okay. Now,
Right.
surely, over the years, you as a supervising authority, what have you done to make these deductions relevant? Because if I work, say, for 20, 30, 40 years, and I'm paying 200, my employer is supposed to pay what exactly? An equivalent amount?
Yeah, it's another 200. So,
So it's 400.
Yeah.
So I want us to do the maths. 400 shillings per month. Per year, how much is it?
Uh,
4,800 shillings.
Yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh.
Multiply that by 10
By
years.
10 years.
48,000 shillings. Multiply that by another 10 years, 96,000 shillings. All right? That's 20 years.
Uh-huh.
Now, for it to get to 100,000, I need to have worked steadily for 30 years. Now, in 30 years' time, what I end up getting is 144,000
Around
shillings.
144,000.
Now, 144,000 shillings. That is the total lump sum that I'm getting. In retirement, when I need the money, my health is failing. I have demands on what is this money supposed to do for me?
Well, just for a little benefit, there's also a little investment income in that. But over and above NSSF, because you're saying that is the minimum,
Yeah.
like statutory. And
That's the one the majority of
yes,
the people.
or are. That is true. And you see, it's not like there's not been efforts. Because you remember there was that bill that came, it shelved, but I'm sure the relevant stakeholders.
Talk now is that they have reached an agreement.
Yeah.
The stakeholders, FKE, COTU, NSSF board itself.
Yes.
Okay.
And they've given a nod,
Yep.
we're told.
Yeah.
Go up by 6%. So beyond this that you're saying, so there is NSSF, but then you also have other options of
yes.
saving for retirement.
Yes.
And saving for retirement is not necessarily just putting money in a pension scheme.
True.
It goes beyond that. So what else is it that one can do to work towards their retirement?
Well, you've correctly put it. It's beyond, let me put it like putting money in a scheme, in a retirement benefit scheme. And you can save in various vehicles. And I know Kenyans are very creative when it comes to this. We have SACCOs. We have even saving through insurance. And, products like life insurance, that is saving. Protecting the assets that you have, that is also saving. So these are various ways where one can actually put their money. Even property, because there are people who will tell you that I'd rather buy a building or put up a house or rentals to guarantee some income. That's also a form of saving in its own way. We have the money markets. Now, right now, I know it's a big thing. People are going there. So there are various ways of saving. And it's all, again, determined by what are your goals. Or what is it? Where do you want to go? So that now at least what you're doing is targeted. So, you can actually combine all these forms of saving.
And have them as well.
And have them as well.
I think the big thing that people have in their mind, when you think about saving, you're thinking about getting this into 20, 30 year, 40 year period. It's the assurance that what you're putting in is also safe, because it's not something that you're going to go tomorrow and withdraw and access tomorrow. You're basically putting this, saving this for many years down the road. Now, I'm sure that's the job of RBA to make sure that these schemes that are established are healthy enough to be alive at that moment when I come calling and say, you know what, now I'm at that point of retirement and I need the money out. So what is it that you do to make sure that this remain going concerns?
We do actually what we'd call a risk-based supervision. So on a daily basis, all schemes that are registered by us, we have to monitor. How are they investing? We have to monitor the contributions. Are they coming in? Because sometimes you'll find situations where you've been told you'll earn a pension, but your employer is not remitting. So we ensure this is done. The investment is done. Then at the payout phase, we also make sure that you actually receive what is due to you. And normally we say this, ideally, within law, should be within 30 days once you've provided everything that you need. That is required to process your payment. You also have the liberty. If you're moving from one employer to another, or you can actually move your funds, you can let them remain where you are, and we watch over this. The other way we assure that what you have is safeguarded is actually through education as well, because lack of knowledge sometimes is what is a problem. People now have a perception that it's not safe. But once you come to know where you're keeping, because in our sector, I normally say that we are one of the most heavily regulated, because for our service providers, the people who are taking care of the pension, it's normally like three, we can call it a triangle, because in most cases you'll have a fund manager, you'll have a custodian where the money is, who keep the money. You then have the trustees, who are like the owners of the scheme, and you have administrators. Most of the time they do the day-to-day running of the scheme. So all these are regulated, and you'll find that most of the time, each entity is regulated by RBA and either CMA, RBA and IRA, RBA and central bank. So, probabilities of it going wrong are clearly very slim. But what I'd also like to state is, if anyone is ever told that we are giving you a retirement product, something that is geared towards saving for your retirement, one thing you have to find out is, are they regulated by RBA? So that we don't have imposters out there. We've had situations where people have been promised a pension. They come to us and we realize that scheme is non-existent. It was never even registered with us. So you see now, that also puts it, but there are few. It's not happened so much, but it's something I like to stress on. Anything retirement, check. You can go
Make
to
sure
our
that
website.
it's under RBA.
RBA, yeah.
How many schemes are under your supervision at present?
At present, the active ones are roughly around 1,300.
1,300
300, yes.
active pension schemes.
Yeah.
Okay. What is inactive?
Okay, inactive. We have schemes that were there, but we call them closed schemes, in that people are no longer contributing into them. Yeah. So
By design?
Yes. You'd find probably, if it's an employer, they ceased operations.
Okay.
But the people have still left, their funds are still left in there. And and most of the time, it's very hard that, say, if an employer set up a scheme and then they, everything disappears because the employer ceased operation, that your retirement money disappears because the scheme remains. Remember, it's formed under trust. So it will be there. Within our files, we still monitor.
Okay.
So before this scheme is wound up, or it's, in a layman's language, we close this scheme and say, this one now is done. We have to look for all the members, all the contributors. Because in schemes, you also have people who differ. Like they will leave and their money is still in the scheme.
Yeah.
So someone goes for greener pastures, even goes abroad, leaves their money there, then they come back. So before we close that scheme, we make sure that there's that tracing element. We look for the person, the member, and if we can't trace that, then there should be beneficiaries. And we always insist people should also nominate their beneficiaries, have it listed, so that with the contacts that people can follow. But in case it's difficult, we have normally advertised. The schemes will normally even advertise on papers, try to get them. Worst case scenario, you can't trace anyone. That's when now we transfer to Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. So it's very hard for that money to just get lost.
To get lost.
Yeah, no,
City ask.
My concern isn't the money getting lost. I don't think it can get lost, really. Money never does. Just people take it. People misappropriate it. They do strange things with it. But a saving scheme is for people who are saving.
Yes.
Now, the stories, specifically, I am on the case of NSSF.
NSSF.
Yes. Because insurance companies tend to be very informative. If you're saving with them, they always inform you. In fact, sometimes you wish they would stop informing you. They are always sending you this message and sending you that message.
Statement.
Yeah, yes, and telling you you can do this on this date. They keep you informed.
They're obligated, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is NSSF obligated?
NSSF is actually regulated by RBA as well.
Are they obligated to inform
To
you?
inform, yes. And I can say without fear of contradiction that they've upped their game. You can actually check your balance through your phone of your NSSF. It's only that I don't know the short code,
Don't worry.
but it's there.
It's in the public domain. I know it is there. I am coming from the standpoint of the many news items, the many complaints that one reads about regarding retirement benefits.
Yes.
Specifically, NSSF, where someone retired, they've gone, they keep coming, the money is not forthcoming, it is delayed. Now, if they have upped their game, as you say, I would assume that they would inform you that your dues are ready for collection. That if indeed, or they would say, send us the details of your bank so that we can start forwarding your dues. Something of that sort.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, one doesn't hear very many stories of this because they have been there for the longest time and they probably have more members. Not probably, they most certainly definitively have more members saving with them than some of the other schemes. Now, surely, should these people not be informed? And specifically when you consider that when one retires, one probably needs that money more than at any other time of their lives.
That is very true.
Yes.
And one of I think the best things I think NSSF has done is also establish their presence countrywide, not just in offices, in Huduma centers, because you rightfully put it, they serve the biggest majority. Even those who are not, within like these urban settings. Probably those who don't even, the modern gadgets and communication are not too available for them. What I can say is, I'm sure about, is when it comes to the payment process now, you cannot compare it with how it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago. The complaints, from where we sit, because we
you
also
receive
receive complaints. From NSSF, we can see the reduction has been drastic.
What if those
Which
who are
points?
complaining have died? They can't possibly be complaining because when you're dead,
Now, when you're dead, you can complain through your
Your beneficiaries.
your
Please,
beneficiaries.
I cut you short. I apologize. Now,
Sorry.
There was something you wanted to say. Yes.
Yeah. So in that aspect, the information bit. One thing I think Kenyans should also know is that NSSF is also mandated, say, to hold an AGM, which they do. Publish their annual audited accounts,
Yes.
which is done. I know we'll say, but most Kenyans, but this is where we start. Because much as we like to throw it to NSSF, we also have an obligation as members, because we also have rights to, because you rightly put in it. Can NSSF now come with the way I can get my statement? Because them informing, assuming, say, 3 million Kenyans that, you're about to retire in 3 months, give us this, I think it's also our duty. Can we make sure our records with NSSF are also proper?
Up to date.
Because there are also some employers by there who don't remit.
Yes. And even if you move services within the government, you will find that sometimes whatever deductions have been there have not been remitted. And you'll find NSF have no clue that you even contributed anything.
Yep.
Actually, they do. Their statements are normally very comprehensive.
They can show that there's a gap.
There is a gap.
I'm saying,
Yes.
that's what I'm saying, that
Yes.
they will tell you, because somewhere along the line, because you moved, the deductions were made.
Yeah.
But it is clear that money didn't get to them. Yes.
But as it is, I'll now, yes, we can move historically, but sometimes if we dwell on what went wrong, we might never get right.
You see, I'm at that age
Yeah.
where, as a contributor to NSSF for many years, what you hear me saying is because I have followed up with NSSF to find out. So I am actually narrating the experience I have had without referring to myself. Okay? You will get a printout. There's no problem. Very quick. Okay? As for, but I used to work here and there's this.
there's a gap.
No, they're given forms.
Yeah.
Go
Take
back,
it.
take it to them, let them fill it in, let them bring it back. That's a good step. But I am saying, you see, I happen to be here.
The
And
question
still active.
actually I see here is, and maybe you can respond after the break, is how do you make sure that you are also making sure that your statement is up to date
Yes.
regularly? I know I am being deducted by my employer
Because I can
and it's
see.
on my pay slip.
Yeah.
Can I then also check whether the employer has remitted to NSSF? And what recourse do I have if I find that I have been deducted but my NSSF statement does not reflect the deductions and my contribution to NSSF? What is the recourse? Tell us about this after we take this break. So,
All right.
okay. So we're having a conversation with Bosco Gicheo. Bosco is the Senior Supervision Officer at the Retirement Benefits Authority. We are talking about saving for retirement, the journey towards saving for retirement. As we talk about that as well, let's talk about owning a home. And you'll tell us about whether we can use pensions to own homes, right?
Great.
There's something called the Kenya Mortgage Refinancing Company. The Kenya Mortgage Refinancing Company is basically an entity set up in law, just like the RBA and others, and it has government in it. It has 9 banks in it. It has 11 circles in it. It is then also supported by the World Bank, by the Africa Development Bank, and by Shelter Afrique, reputable organizations. What they do is when you go to any of those 9 banks or 11 circles and ask for a home loan supported by KMRC, they are able to give you a home loan at less than 10%, which is going to be fixed for the entire duration of your tenure, which can go up to 25 years. Choose how long you want to pay. So instead of paying rent today, how about you pay rent towards owning your own home? Because rent yako, keja yako.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
The conversation continues with Bosco Gicheo. He's a Senior Supervision Officer at the Retirement Benefits Authority. We'd asked you a question before we took a break.
Yes, and you also talked of the rain. I don't
Yeah.
know the other saying. You say you save for a rainy day.
Save for a rainy day.
But rainy days are good. I mean, it should have been saved for a dry.
Anyway, Bosco.
Okay. Yes, our.
Yes, once you realize that you have gaps in your statement, and we're talking here NSSF but in particular,
Yep.
first point of stop is NSSF itself. And I know they have mechanisms of how to follow it up. However, if you're not satisfied with what has been done or it's not been resolved, then RBA is your ultimate stop, and you can be sure we'll take it up. And we always try to resolve such matters in shortest time possible, 30 days max on the outside. And because, it's critical. If you have been contributing, that's the accumulation phase.
Yeah.
You've done your duty. Then someone else also needs to take responsibility for the next phase.
To do their duty.
To do their duty. Yeah.
Now, that is NSSF, which is statutory. These are the schemes that are established by the employer.
Yes.
So the employer has established a pension scheme and they're saying, let's contribute towards this. I'll be deducting you and I'll also be contributing some bit for you into this pension scheme. But who is the owner of the pension scheme? The employer. And then that employer is not contributing to that pension scheme.
Point of correction first.
Okay.
We are learning, so it's not a problem. Yeah. The owner of the scheme
It's not the
is
employer.
not the employer. What they do is actually establish the scheme.
Okay.
The scheme then, the owners are people we call trustees. And these are people who now run that scheme. It's just like a company where you have, that board of directors
Yes.
who are registered.
Who appoints the trustees?
The trustees, there's a point who was appointed by the sponsor, who's the employer. By the way, we patented that name sponsor. We started using it in 2000. So I know
So we
the
can't
Kenyan
just
context can
sponsor.
be different.
Your sponsor.
So when you hear me say sponsor a lot.
which is synonymous with a blessing.
So they can appoint up to half the number of trustees. In most cases, trustees, the maximum we have is 9 in any scheme.
Okay.
We normally say a minimum of 4. Then members who are now, the contributors elect also their representative to that board.
So half come from the sponsor.
Yes.
The other half come from the contributor.
The contributor.
Okay.
And where it is more, the number is odd, then The higher number should be from the contributor, the members.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, these are the legal owners of the scheme. Once a scheme is set up, it is a different entity from
The company.
the company.
Okay.
So if you're in Standard Media, for example, you'll have Standard Media as the group, right? Then you'll have Standard Media Staff Retirement Benefit Scheme.
Yes.
Totally different entity. Governed now by
By the
the
trustees.
RBA Act.
Okay.
Yes. So the trustees will be running the show. They'll be running the day-to-day affairs of the scheme, determining what happens. Then there's a very critical document, which is like the constitution that sets up the scheme. It's called a trust deed and rules. And anyone who's in a scheme should be conversant with this document because now it stipulates everything that happens within the scheme. As a member, what are your rights and obligations? What happens to you? What are the contribution rates? It spells down all these things. Yeah. What are the obligations of the trustees? What's the obligation of the sponsor? It's all there in the trust deed and rules.
So this is like the memorandum
Oh, yes.
of an articles of association for this specific scheme.
Yes.
It could vary from scheme to scheme,
True.
depending on what the owners
The nature it is there.
decided to do with it.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I find that I'm contributing to XXX staff retirement benefit scheme and they have not been remitting, who do we go for?
The person to go for first is the trustee, of course,
Okay.
because the trustee is supposed to ensure that the contributions actually go in. You know, you deducted at source, that payroll, it's run.
Yeah.
So once they're at the payroll point, they've shown we've deducted this, has it got to the scheme? And it's the duty of the trustees to ensure that this actually happens every month.
And when it doesn't happen, what happens?
They're supposed to report it to RBA.
And then what happens?
What happens is RBA then will, even before they do that, they're supposed to take it up with the employer, the sponsor, and follow up and take all the necessary measures to ensure that, you know, you can engage your employer because, I mean, it's not adversarial.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because they have other issues. We cannot just assume out of the blues they've just decided this month you're not giving you anything. So there's that engagement, which sometimes is quite interesting because you find either the CEO or the CFO actually sits in the board of trustees and then they're in financial difficulty. You know, the law even allows for them, trustees, to even take the employer to court to, you know, to compel them to get. But now we've even, there's been some amendments to the Act where I know you've heard about this, where we can, KRA can be appointed. Yeah, trustees can appoint KRA to now follow up on the
To enforce
that,
collection.
Yes, we know. And
And we know that's a job Karen does very well.
they are good partners. Yes. So, because what we want to do is, if there is a mechanism where now we can be able to get this, even if it's sometimes going to the extent of making sure, because some employers, let's just be honest, some are just that we don't want to give it.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they even have something they can give the scheme in return. Because what we are telling even the employers, economic times sometimes get very hard, is you can negotiate. We can talk with your members, talk with RBA. This is where we are.
Say, right
Can we
now,
suspend?
our financial
Yes,
situation
yes.
will not really leave us in a good stead if we
Yes.
continue, remitting this.
Yes.
But that talking culture where the talk is primarily centered on speaking the truth as it exists, is it something that we find common? Because if you start with the leadership, the political leadership, it's a fairly scarce commodity at that particular level. And so if you now come to the common mwananchi and following that example, it's likely to be also scarce because as we're discussing, it seems straightforward. Why don't you tell folks, come, this is a situation, this is what we're doing, this is what we think. But it rarely happens. Because if it did, would we have all these outbursts and court cases and what have you?
You're really putting me on the spot because yes, it is. It's true. Actually, our culture is such that
yes,
and especially matters money. We are never sincere. When we want to put our net worth, we exaggerate it. When it comes now to, okay, you owe me, then it's issues, it goes down. So it's true. It cuts across even with employers. Sometimes there are those who are not sincere. But you see the beauty, why trustees, a scheme is the best place now to have those negotiations. You have representation from both sides.
From both sides.
They sit in that board. So you are here, you're telling us there's no money. And sometimes, let me leak some secrets. Sometimes they even told, to come and tell you, these guys, there is money coming from here. So they should not tell you there is no money. Because they're the ones bringing it in.
Yeah.
You know where the problem arises,
Yeah.
is when you look at stories like the one we're talking about this morning with my colleague Eric, of a certain SACCO. And you find that there are all sorts of discrepancies with the asset base, what they've lent out, what they declare. I mean, there are too many moving parts and they're not sure how it is they fit together, and yet they're supposed to be the same organization. What am I saying? I'm saying that even if they're trustees, even if they're all these individuals and safeguards, if there's a benefit to be derived when you're sitting at that level, the likelihood of all these people colluding,
colluding.
Is high. I'm not saying they necessarily do. I'm simply saying it is
There's
high.
a possibility.
There is a very, very high possibility.
And you remember I started by saying it's not absolute.
Yes.
We do our best, but we can never say it's watertight. Yeah. But you see, the beauty is, actually, we do our risk-based analysis is such that it's, it is real time. So I will know even how a scheme has been published. But even if they don't report, we can tell.
You can still tell.
Because after the first quarter, say first 3 months, the next 3 months, you'll see that pattern. You will know there is something. And then you see, we also have those, like the fund manager and the custodian. They're meant to report to RBA as well.
Who are separate entities.
They're separate entities.
So the trustees are basically just the managers.
Yes.
But the money is with custodian.
With the custodian.
The fund manager is on
Who does the investment.
investing to grow the wealth.
The wealth.
And it's a separate entity.
A separate entity.
And also managed by CMA there at that point.
CMA and RBA.
And
You
RBA.
see, for us to renew their license, part of the things they also do, they also have to file returns with us. So you see, they'll also whistleblow because for them they're in business. They don't want to lose these. They don't want to lose this license.
So what I'm hearing you say is basically there's several safeguards
yes.
to make sure that once money goes into a retirement benefit scheme, then it does not just get played around with.
True.
Now let's talk about the job of the retirement benefit scheme to grow this pot, this kitty. Are there limitations to what they can do and what they cannot do with the money that has come in? Can they decide, wajua city, nimesikia bwana pale Magarini near Marafa Health Kitchen, shamba inapanda, we go and buy land at Health Kitchen, hoping that in 30 years time it can be a tourist attraction, global, for the benefit of our members. Are there limitations to what these fund managers cannot do?
Yes, they are actually guided. The schemes, the trustees, fund managers. We have a table in our act. We call it famously, it's known as Table G for those in the industry. So it gives guidelines on even percentages, limits, like how much can you, and the various investment classes. So like where can you invest and what are the limits? What we have as the biggest is the government bills and bonds, those securities, where for the, within the region, East Africa, a scheme can put up to 90%.
90% lending to government.
It's their discretion, like they can have that.
Okay.
Yeah. Then, of course, we have the
Because they
equities.
consider it to be
Safest.
It's safest, yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is. And then there is, you have the equities, you have the rates, you have all these classes. Property. But property, of course, we've capped that one, I'll say, at 30%. So,
going into property has been capped
it's
at
capped.
30.
And RBA also has to, for the past few, like from last year, we have to approve for that case of property. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you don't just go and, the craze of caproti and you do not even know who is selling to who. So that, we actually safeguard our people.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is that guideline. And then schemes are also expected to come up with the guideline, what we call an investment policy statement. which is revised
The
every 3
individual
years.
scheme.
Individual.
So you say you essentially they present it to you in advance.
Yes.
Until this is how we.
This is how we. Then they will give you their strategic, what they think is their strategic allocation, what they're intending to do, so they can play within those ranges. So anytime it goes above, if they will invest in a certain asset class and it goes above what is allowed, it will always show a red flag. So we'll be able to come to you and tell you why.
Bosco,
Yes.
now that you say that there's a cap, especially when it goes to real estate, the president hosted you people in State House the other day. The pension
You're
schemes,
saying that with a smile.
yeah,
Yes, yes.
and the insurance companies,
Yes.
and he was enticing you to invest in real estate. There's already a cap. I can imagine that many of these pension schemes have already gone as close as possible to that cap. Is there room really for more investment towards this affordable housing scheme?
I remember when you started, you also said saving. How can people save? We
Yes.
save in various ways. A scheme can also invest in various ways. And one of them, and I think the president is actually right. One thing I'm very happy is that he follows pensions and the savings. And I think it sets the tone. Let's give credit there.
At that national level. Yeah.
Because we're now seeing the importance. Because one thing, they normally say tax and death are the two most sure things we have, right? The other one is definitely retirement. You will retire at some point, even if it's self-employed. Nafika mahali, your body just says, no,
Enough.
this is it. So you need to, and by the way, people now are living longer. Before we used to be told our life expectancy as Kenyans was 49, I don't know, for men. Men were always in trouble.
With good reason.
With good reason. So now, so now you'll find we are actually probably living longer than when we are working. Because if you get into employment at 25, you retire at 60. So that's 35 years. Yeah. If God gives you a good life and strength, you die at 90. That is like 30 years again. And there's a serious addiction we have. It's called the salary.
Yes.
That's a very bad addiction. So imagine you want to live 30 years and you have nothing to go back to.
Monthly.
So now...
Bosco has gotten to the heart of the matter. You see, as an authority, this very thing, you've actually gotten to the heart of the matter. How then do you ensure that what one gets at retirement is commensurate with the cost of living? Because if that conversation isn't had, then this saving will not make sense to the person who is saving for retirement.
I'll tie that to what Eric had asked. I'm not running away from the question of the housing and investment. Actually, you'll see, like currently, the inflation rate is high.
Yep.
Like probably it's surpassing the interest. So the interest rates that you're
9.8%.
getting.
Yeah.
But the beauty with retirement, the investments in retirement, it's long term. Yeah, so it can be able to go through the
Withstand the
waves.
shocks.
Yes, by the time you got there. And we say ours, it normally has that compounding effect. You're almost guaranteed, because what we aim at is that income replacement ratio, that you should have at least 60%. You should, actually everybody should aim at this. If I don't know where yours is, but if you're earning 100,000.
You want me to tell you on air so that the whole country can hear?
Okay. Tell me after this. So you see, once you've ensured you have that replacement ratio, you can almost be guaranteed. And we've come up with products, say like the post-retirement medical fund, because medical inflation is even higher than our normal inflation. So, and at retirement, one of the biggest expenses is medical. So how can you now save separately within the fund for medical? So you're already taking care of your medical, so that whatever you'll have left is just for your use and eating. And that forms part of investments, how it's done. So now when you come back to, say, the housing question, and by the way, I know even where I grew up, when guys were retiring, the first thing they were doing with the lump sum is going back to their roots, shags, to build a home. And by the time someone is even getting to the roof, all the money is gone. So, it's actually, it's satirical, it's comical, but it's the truth. It's what is happening. So now how do we invest in the house without really pulling the resources from the scheme? One of the ways is now, as being part of government, this is when you're talking of affordable housing, saying that actually we can allow members to take part of what they're saving for retirement without compromising the fundamental aim of, what you
which is
earn at retirement, to now put it to enable you to get a house, a residential house. Yeah. So within the affordable housing space, then you can be able to actually use up to 40% of your savings in a scheme, or a maximum of 7 million as it is right now, to purchase a house. Through the affordable housing, it will even make more sense because we know the costs of houses. I mean, in Kenya right now, I don't know whether they are real or imagined, but we know where our housing pricing is. Yes. So with this, if someone can be able to now get part of this fund to secure this, and the advantages, of course, afforded by the affordable housing. Yeah. What is it called? That tax, the stamp duty.
Yep.
When you're getting through that, one, it's waived, right? So you have these advantages. If you combine that and what you're getting from pension, it's not perfect. I'm not saying we are there yet.
But it's a journey.
It's a journey.
It's a sure journey towards making sure that by the time you retire, you already have a home
somewhere.
And then so the lump sum that you receive, then you can put into something else.
Something else.
So you have a home, and you've also put some money aside for medical. At retirement. Now the other money will be for your subsistence.
You can go for a holiday. Even Kenyans can start going to.
Well, most of us, when you go on holiday, we go shags.
Okay, now in that shags, now you can have a home that is palatial. By the way, holidays are always shags.
You go shag, and you come back from that holiday more tired.
You're tired.
than when you actually left.
I was so tired.
By the way, Bosco, Dr. Timothy Olwen says hello. He's listening.
Great. It's been a journey.
Yes.
My big brother.
Yes.
Right.
And they've helped me through the saving journey. I am who I am because of them. Yeah, thank you.
Bosco,
yes,
we thank you very much for joining us today and for shedding light. And please come again so we can keep. Now we are in this space. Like you said, the president is setting the tone at that level, talking about pension, savings, ownership of homes, investment. So I think we also now need to pick up that mantle and keep talking about it and asking the question, so then we can also hold him accountable with knowledge.
Yeah.
And that's the importance of having these conversations.
True.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bosco, Gicheo, final comment.
I like to telling, especially the young ones like us, the youth. You hustle while they party, work while they sleep, and you live like they dream.
Hustle while they party, work while they sleep, live while they dream.
Speak in rhyme all the
time. Bosco Gicheo is a senior supervision officer at the Retirement Benefits Authority. We've been talking about the benefits of saving for retirement and what you need to do about that.